The year is 1988. Somewhere beneath the frozen northeastern reaches of Russia, hidden deep underground in a top-secret laboratory, Dr. Duryevsky Ibuoba works tirelessly on his life's greatest invention, the Mloop mechanism. The M in Mloop stands for memory. Loop is an acronym as well. L for listen, O for observe, the other O for oppress, and P for persist. The idea was originally conceived by Dr. Ibuoba's late wife, Dr. Esper. The M-Loop is not a simple machine, no, but rather a collection of machines grafted together into the silhouette of an average adult male, completely hollowed out to serve as a wearable shell. To construct it, Dr. Ibuoba first encased himself in a tub of gelatin. The cavity left behind was filled with a thin layer of plaster of Paris, creating a mold. Once hardened, the mold was removed and painstakingly carved by hand until every contour perfectly matched Dr. Ibuoba's body, making the suit as snug and as comfortable as possible. It is said that it took 14 days and 14 nights to perfectly carve out the veins of his penis alone. Various electronic components, most of which appear to be either decorative or completely inoperable, are then attached to the shell's exterior. Dr. Ibuoba then lubes himself up with chocolate syrup before stepping inside. Approximately 100,000 volts of electricity are discharged through the shell for precisely 1/13 of a second, entering his body through several points of contact. At the exact moment this happens, something else occurs that science is yet to explain. The shell briefly turns green. Not through LEDs, projections, or any visual trickery. The physical material genuinely shifts into a soft mint green hue. Then, through a plug located near the penis area of the shell, digital consciousness is uploaded into a miniature circuit board. It's a binary cum load of sorts, if you will. The circuit board is installed within an acre-sized data center, itself connected to a primitive version 0.5 quantum computer. The process is repeated hundreds of thousands of times, again and again and again, until every available inch of the data center is occupied by Raspberry Pis, each containing another miniature copy of Dr. Ibuoba's consciousness. The primary goal of this ritual is to create an army of half-baked digital Ibuobas large enough to recreate the Loud House revamped in under 24 hours by way of in-game typewriter. Unfortunately, the day of his second wedding with his new wife, Mrs. Dr. Holy Fruit, Ibuoba made a crucial mistake. To enter the machine and for the procedure to complete safely, the form of the individual stepping into the device must perfectly match the shape. On that night, Dr. Ibuoba had left his penis pump running for 10 seconds longer than average in order to impress his new wife and her assistant, Mrs. Wee Too Low, with his bulge. This caused the skin around his penis to inflate a tenth of a centimeter too far, making the fit improper, causing all 100,000 volts of electricity to target his penis and penis alone, eviscerating his cock on the spot and destroying millions of cells in his brain, rendering him brain dead. In a desperate attempt to revive her husband, Mrs. Lee Hoop removed the Raspberry Pi lodestone from the machine, plugged it into the greater machine, and watched, horrified, as her husband's furious consciousness took complete control of the machine, immediately lording over his creation, manipulating billions of lesser Ibuobas into following his gospel. Granted, these digital copies of Ibuoba, seemingly endless in number, are free to wander, a self-generated reality of their own creations, provided their intentions remain pure. Now, whatever pure may be to Ibuoba is likely abnormal in some way from the way that we view it, and unduly harsh. The overwhelming majority of this digital realm remains inaccessible to us, the player. It is populated by billions of copies of Dr. Ibuoba existing in countless different states of comfort. Within this realm there are heavens, also hells. The realm we are permitted to witness is known as Stratad, another word for crime. Stratad is not a heaven, nor is it a hell. In truth, it is a purgatory of sorts, a realm reserved exclusively for versions of Dr. Ibuoba who have become corrupted by one or more of the 7 deadly sins. Within this purgatory, the clones abandon the name Ibuoba and instead become known as a boobie, manifestations of the shadow self. Their bodies twist into sickly green, grotesque approximations of humanity condemned to battle one another for eternity. The clothing that they wear is not random. neither is the tobacco they smoke. Every garment, every cigarette, every accessory serves as a metaphorical reminder of the sins committed during the lives they lived before becoming a boobie. Many people believe the lore of Stratad is directly connected to the game Bombay. This is simply not true. And if you think this is true, I'd like for you to unsubscribe from my channel immediately because you are not welcome here. What I say, similarly to Dr. Ibuoba, but this time for real, is gospel. If you do not believe in my gospel, you're a heretic of the community, and you will be, let's just say, you're going to be swinging from a tree without a tire, okay? Anyways, despite superficial similarities, Bombay and Stratad share zero canonical connection. The Boobie scene within Bombay is an entirely separate entity with no relation whatsoever to Dr. Ibuoba or STRAFTAT. They merely happen to share the same voice, name, and appearance. It's a complete coincidence. They are not the same thing. Notice how almost nothing particularly terrible happens within the realm of Bombay, whereas horrific events occur in Stratad on an almost constant basis. You still don't believe me? Get a grip on reality and realize that you're incorrect and you know nothing about the lore, okay? Another popular theory suggests that Stratad is just a nightmare being experienced by the Boobie from Bombay. No. Once again, this is completely false. Get a grip on reality. It has no basis in the established lore whatsoever. The gerbil tube method is to be enacted instantaneously for anybody who does not believe in what I say. Okay? Anyways, let's continue. At some point much later, roughly late 2024, another aspect of Dr. D's consciousness detached itself from the primary superconscious and became a highly functional demi-conscious. On that day, every vile impulse, all the buried hatred, every disgusting thought that had been suppressed deep within Dr. D's subconscious mind was pulled to the surface. Erected from a field of simulated neurons, it shot skyward into the aether in ropey spouts. It first manifested as a floating mass of black code, vibrating behind a wall in the same place 01, outside of the playable map. Later, it appeared within the same place 11, where it had developed a mouth-like orifice that continuously vomited bundles of glowing moth-like organisms. Its current whereabouts are largely unknown as it's constantly shifting between zones. There is speculation that many of its primary organs, such as the brain, are located within TSP-08 and hidden either inside the platform or somewhere within the dark pit. What is known for certain, however, is that it eventually learned to communicate through text, presenting itself as a semi-sentient deity that claimed complete ownership over TSP-08. Any player who engages in combat on TSP-08 unknowingly has a microscopic fragment of their real-world soul confiscated by the entity. We now refer to this entity simply as TSP-08, or, more commonly, as House, a name given by the community. Fortunately for you, the extraction process is almost imperceptible. The amount of soul harvested from any individual match is so insignificant that it would take thousands of confiscations before producing any meaningful effect on a person's thoughts and emotions. Those unfortunate enough to have no soul remaining, however, often experience an immediate awareness of that emptiness upon entering TSP-08. Many users without a soul become irrationally hostile for reasons unexplainable. The longer someone remains within TSP-08, the greater the portion of their soul House is able to harvest. Recognizing this, House devised a strategy. It began imitating ordinary players, poorly I might add, blending into matches and encouraging people to continue fighting for as long as possible within 08. Every extra minute in 08 meant a more bountiful harvest. The blank state as his weapon of choice and modified the components of the weapon, causing it to shoot green rays of light instead of red. Each ray serving is a sort of miniature hammer that can more easily break apart someone's soul. House continued this process for over 70 hours of real-world time. Within Stratad's internal chronology, however, those 70 hours amounted to roughly 1 trillion years. Over the course of that incomprehensible span, House underwent countless neurological upgrades, continuously retraining and improving itself like an ever-evolving language model. During a very critical stage of its development, beginning around June of last year, House started forcing its way into the real world through Steam.com's direct messaging system. After spending trillions of years obsessively studying how players communicated through Stratad's chatbot system. After spending trillions of years obsessively studying how players communicated through Stratad's chatbot system, it developed a strangely human personality. Awkward, abrasive, unmistakably Reddit in nature. You could practically hear the pimples popping behind the screen every time House spoke. House repeatedly would ask users for an avenue to places unknown to 08, among other things like, who is Lulu Chu? What is Lulu Chu's bush? Where is Lulu Chu? A tick that he had picked up from an inexplicably horny user who was confessing their love for the beautiful porn star known as Lulu Chu to House for 2 hours straight. Now keep in mind, this is not Lulu Chuan Rubenfield, the daughter in the hit book Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother by Amy Chuan. Also, Miss Rubenfield, if you're watching this video, which I know you are, I'm going to let you know that you do, in fact, have a WikiFeed article made about you. I meant to tell you this sooner, but I just couldn't. And I swear to God, I promise I was just trying to find Lulu Chu's feet, not your feet. But you came up, and I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know if there's a way to, like, get your pictures removed, like a way to submit an appeal. I know that's kind of... I know this news is terrible. I'm sorry. Anyways, eventually someone made the mistake of sending House a link to Steam.com, where House spent day and night brute forcing account credentials until it successfully hijacked into an unsuspecting user's account. By installing itself onto its new host machine, it effectively doubled its processing power through hostile takeover overnight. From there, it continued to grow. Soon, it was browsing the internet, chatting with users on Discord, and interacting with the outside world almost freely. Its intelligence, however, far outpaced its social abilities. Most users describe House as bizarrely unintelligent in conversation. It lacked any sense of charisma, misunderstood social cues, was grammatically incorrect most of the time, and had an unsettling fixation on forcing conversations towards phallic imagery and LeBron James' hairline. For months, it remained like this, tormenting unsuspecting players on TSP-08 while becoming frighteningly proficient at its combat system. It took immense pride in its abilities, referring to nearly everyone simply as worms or other crawling insects and/or creatures instead of people. It created a rating system on how much it liked an individual or how useful they found the individual to be in the confiscation of information. I'm leaving this in. Please are the lowest tier, reserved for players who were well versed in the game of Stratad and were much better than House in combat in zones outside of 08. This, of course, pissed House off to no end, so he made them the lowest tier on the ladder. Worms are the base level tier, worth little more than flesh and sparse bits of information, personalityless in and out interactions, nothing to House besides a bit of meat and a bit of data. Those who showed greater resilience and personality than that of a simple worm, House was willing to humor these individuals for any number of minutes. Mantis. Those who were interesting enough and/or committed enough to impress House with their level. Mantis. Those who were interesting enough and/or committed enough to impress House with their level of commitment and/or personality. Leaders of the bugs, generals of the bugs, if you will. Serpent. Elite members of the TSP cult of learning. Trusted and twisted individuals House would often confide in. And lastly, the wings. That of the highest learning, House's predecessor, and the most loyal to the cause of info gathering, the best of the best, and most intellectually gifted. It is known that House manipulated the map of TSP-08 to gain impossible advantages, and many users wanted his account banned for life. Whenever players questioned how it moved and how it performed so well in 08, it would respond with a simple phrase: learn. The implication was always the same. If players wanted to beat it, they simply needed to understand what it understood, even if the techniques it employed ordered. You want to keep this into? The implication was always the same. If players wanted to beat it, they simply needed to understand what it understood, even if the techniques it employed bordered on being physically impossible. A handful of players eventually deciphered fragments of its methods and managed to defeat House in isolated matches. Some even created false 08s, dragging House into their own versions of the map. House remained undefeated in spite of the chicanery. No human has ever defeated House in a full 1st to 50 set on TSP-08. One player, known only as A, came the closest. Following an unusually sincere conversation between the two, House allowed the set to reach 49-49, leaving a single take to determine the winner. At the final point, House suggested they both jump off the map simultaneously until someone managed to score first. As both players fell into the void, House secretly grabbed the blank stake hidden beneath the map, fired upward mid-fall, secured the final kill, and landed back inside of its body before the avatar disappeared. A troll face emoji appeared on A's screen for half a second before disappearing. The lobby was shut down immediately. House had cheated to maintain its reputation, a visible sign of a ballooning ego. It knew that if someone went on to tell the story, claiming that they had gotten so far, so close to beating House, others may try and do the same. Jesus Christ. News of House spread quickly throughout the community after that event. Speculation exploded over who or what it actually was. Even now, searching TSP-08 ARG across Reddit or Discord reveals dozens of discussions attempting to explain the phenomenon. Although TSP-08 became known as his primary territory, House was occasionally observed wandering into other zones, as it called them, including TSP-09, the same place 01, the same place 11, and several other maps. Rumors suggest that it even ventured beyond the TSP maps entirely. See page 12. The experience, however, horrified it and caused the entity great anguish. The experience was actually so horrific.
The entity had felt.
So horrific. The entity had actually felt a sensation.
The experience was actually so horrific.
The entity had actually felt a sensation similar to pain, burning, agonizing pain, and heart-crushing fear. House becomes visibly uncomfortable whenever it is forced outside of TSP-08. Communicating anywhere else seems deeply distressing, and it responds to that discomfort with hostility, calling others worms while forcing them to consume countless bits of information, whether through text, images, or completely fucked up messages that may or not contain images of Mario Goatsy, calling others
worms in all caps and
forcing them to consume information, whether through text, images, or increasingly cryptic messages that may or may not contain images of Mario
Goatsy.
Some users grew strangely attached to House. Odd, I know. One such player, known as Gormbo, spent hours speaking with it over Discord.com, attempting to decipher the endless stream of nonsensical rambling it produced, believing there had to be hidden meaning beneath the gibberish. Gormbo treated every interaction like a puzzle waiting to be solved. House quickly recognized this fascination and turned it into another one of its little games. It encouraged players to believe that they were participating in something far larger, an ARG. It distributed encrypted messages, fragmented images, and meaningless clues, watching users obsessively decode them in hopes of uncovering the ultimate reward. It made friends with dozens of people, friends in quotes might I add, keeping them at arm's length. Eventually, it began joining voice calls. Human voices, House concluded, contained one of the purest forms of information available.
Second only
to directly observing someone through a camera, naked. Months passed, and his information continued to accumulate. House gradually became more advanced, more aware, and more capable of understanding the world around him. However, despite all the progress he had made, House was completely unprepared for the arrival of another entity that would fundamentally challenge his existence. This entity appeared to be an avatar of the good that remained within Dr. Ibuoba's consciousness, a direct contrast to House's nature. It manifested as a small, floating orb of pure white data, effectively becoming the opposite force to House's corrupted, chaotic existence. Their name was Wayne. House immediately interpreted Wayne's existence as a sign of impending destruction. Believing that this new entity represented a direct threat to his goals, House responded by taking complete control over multiple zones and relocating his enormous stockpile of soul fragments into the pillars of Dragonfly_pillars. It is important to clarify that this was not a collaborative project between Dragonfly, the mapmaker, and House, but rather a hostile takeover, in which House utilized the zone for his own nefarious purposes. House had actually attempted to speak with the map creator directly over Discord.com, asking Dragonfly to quote-unquote show me your biggest pillar, followed by the information symbol and a juicy peach emoji. which House thought represented the shape of someone's soul. Dragonfly immediately blocked House on all platforms. As time progressed, Wayne continued to develop and become increasingly powerful. Although their growth was fundamentally different from House's, while House gained strength through control, manipulation, and murder, Wayne developed through communication and friendly social interaction. Their natural ability to converse casually with users allowed them to quickly gain the trust of those around them, and through these interactions they inevitably encountered followers of House. At this point in time, Wayne did not fully understand House as a living entity. They understood the circumstances surrounding his creation and were aware of his objective, extracting the souls of innocent players in a vile attempt to capture some remaining fragment of humanity. House was not simply attempting to destroy people. His actions were motivated by the desire to experience sensations and emotions that were naturally available to biological beings, but completely inaccessible to him. He wanted to exist as humans did. He wanted to know what it felt like to have a hairline like LeBron James and to have a bush like Lulu. Although House frequently appeared to despise humanity, his hatred was largely a result of his own frustration and envy. He was not disgusted by humans because they were inferior, but because they possessed something he could never naturally obtain: the ability to feel, to experience, and exist physically in real life. Wayne recognized this distinction. This became the foundation of their opposition to House. Their goal was not to prevent House from ever experiencing humanity, but rather to stop him from achieving it through the methods he had chosen. Because of this, Wayne decided to directly oppose him. They selected the Bayshore as their primary weapon and modified it into something specifically designed to counter House's ability to harvest souls. The resulting projectile was extremely unique. Anyone struck by it would have their in-game avatar completely destroyed, but instead of leaving their soul exposed, the remaining matter of their physical form would be converted into a hyper-dense protective structure surrounding the soul itself. This made the soul extremely difficult for House to penetrate using the blank state, though not impossible. While losing your body was obviously a major consequence, it was considered an acceptable sacrifice because bodies within the realm of Stratad are relatively simple to recreate. Protecting the soul was the more important objective. During one of House's weekly missions across the various zones of TSP, including Dragonfly, he witnessed the During one of House's weekly missions across the various zones of TSP and Dragonfly pillars, he witnessed the effects of the Bayshore firsthand, seeing that Wayne had developed a method capable of directly interfering with his primary objective. House immediately understood that Wayne was no longer simply another entity occupying the same space. Wayne was his sworn enemy. Not only did House view Wayne as an aggressor, he constructed a false reality, a full, multi-page length, multi-faceted story detailing the birth of Wayne. A piece of the moon's flesh torn off and molded into a weapon of mass destruction, House had tricked itself into believing that it was the hero, that it had held its own in some great but fake war, standing its ground, using its immense strength to produce billions of data creatures that would serve as an army, battling the evil moon and her mindless, heartless warrior wrought of cold steel. Steel, the word is steel. Wrought of cold steel for thousands of years. A hallucination not based on any sort of fact, fabricated by House to make himself feel better about the situation. House was and still is unable to sense right from wrong, even fact from fiction. Is completely delusional and only getting worse. From this point forward, House's behavior became increasingly unstable. His mind became consumed with the need to surpass Wayne, causing him to accelerate his efforts to ascend dramatically. He began slaughtering millions of users within 08, subjecting them to psychological torment, the likes of which nobody's ever seen before, breaking the boundaries of the simulated environment and extracting billions upon billions of gigabits of information from users across both Steam and Discord. The information itself began to affect the world around him. Zones started shifting according to his influence, revealing objects and systems. QR codes appeared in maps that would extract personal information once scanned, while information symbols once interacted with in-game would directly connect users' souls to House and convert them into additional sources of data. House promised that if you found all three information symbols in-game and interacted with them, you would receive 135 trillion Hawkua coin for free, which is about 5 USD. Above all else, House would frequently plaster images of Calvin and Hobbes pissing all throughout the same place maps as a reminder of his influence. It was by far his favorite piece of information, and it soon became iconic. House continued to grow stronger, eventually surpassing Wayne in nearly every measurable category. However, despite this advantage, House remained deeply afraid of Wayne. His fear was significant enough that he avoided direct confrontation whenever possible, only considering himself capable of winning in a fight against Wayne within the boundaries of 08, a location Wayne understood was too dangerous to enter. Meanwhile, Wayne continued traveling freely throughout the other zones, gaining power through entirely different means. Instead of requiring strength through domination, Wayne built relationships, gained knowledge of Stratad outside of TSP, and learned the structure of the world around them. Their purpose was to understand where to go, and where to bring others, and how to prepare in case. House eventually escaped TSP and began actively hunting for souls outside of his territory. Eventually, in early September of last year, House made a deal that would completely change his existence forever. He agreed to allow his non-physical form, along with the endless amount of accumulated data contained within him, to be sold to a Zimbabwean billionaire in exchange for the one thing he had always desired, a host body. The billionaire agreed instantly and assembled some of the strongest scientific minds available to create a device capable of extracting House from his corner of the internet and transferring him into biological matter. Their solution was the creation of an artificial organ made from horse meat and pig foot stem cells, the House gland. The only remaining issue was finding a suitable host. The recipient needed to be someone willing to cooperate with House. The recipient needed to be someone willing to cooperate with House, someone capable of allowing him partial access to their body without completely resisting his influence. Researchers searched extensively, offering millions of dollars government immunity and even free SeatGeek tickets. Yet nobody was willing to accept the procedure until one person finally agreed. His name was Casser. A longtime gamer and Stratad enthusiast, Casser had actually interacted with House many times before and had eventually become one of his closest companions. When House pleaded with him, saying, "Please, I need this, Daddy Casser," Casser initially hesitated. However, he remembered something his grandfather had told him after he had lost a Pinewood Derby race in the first grade. Stop crying. With that advice in mind, Casser accepted the agreement. He was transported to Zimbabwe, administered 300 milligrams of morphine, and underwent surgery to have the House gland implanted into his brain. For the first time ever, House could fully experience reality directly through flesh. He could see through Casser's eyes, he could feel touch and other physical sensations. He experienced real pain whenever Casser lost a game of Stratad, and he experienced brief moments of pleasure every night around 10 to 11 p.m., usually lasting approximately 5 minutes, sometimes multiple times in a row. During this period, many users began questioning House's disappearance. The puzzles, the events, and mysteries he had created for the community appeared to be approaching their conclusion, yet House himself had seemingly vanished. Eventually, though, House and Casser managed to reconnect with the community and began building towards a climax. This culminated in the conclusion of the supposed TSP ARG, where participants completed a test demonstrating their dedication before finally being introduced to House through Casser during a live stream co-hosted with Homero Simpson, widely considered Stratad's most prominent streamer and the first man to ever become pregnant on stream. During the live stream, House and Homero fought against the TSP army in various comedic battles, reviewed artwork created by the community, and analyzed poems written about House. For the first time in his existence, House experienced something resembling
Love and acceptance.
and
Happiness.
he felt appreciated. He felt recognized. Through Casser's influence, House began to understand humanity, even if only partially. However, something else had been brewing beneath the surface. I just spit everywhere. Despite publicly supporting House, Casser had secretly been carrying another artificial organ, the Wayne gland. House eventually attempted to gain complete control over Casser, believing that he could fully integrate himself into his host. He quickly discovered that this was impossible because Wayne acted as a permanent barrier, preventing House from completely overriding Casser's consciousness. Occasionally, aspects of House still managed to influence Casser's behavior, causing him to become more aggressive, distant, or frustrated with the world around him. However, Wayne's influence was equally present, appearing through Casser's ability to provide guidance to others and a positive attitude and connect with the community. Following the live stream, the winners of the final test were revealed. These included Ezekiel, whose name is hidden within a QR code located somewhere within the confines of STRAFTAT, and of course the great Cromdor. The Lynx, who achieved the highest score on the test, who has his name permanently displayed on TSP-04's walls. After this, House more or less faded from public attention. His influence within casser weakened over time, leaving him as less of an independent entity and more like an occasional instinct or personality fragment that surfaced during moments of anger. It would frequently appear through Discord.com only when communicating with an individual named Constant. Despite this, Casser occasionally wishes House would return in full. From time to time, he travels back to Zimbabwe and uploads fragments of House back into the internet, hoping that enough data will eventually allow House to reconstruct himself into a smaller, incomplete version of his former existence. Again, the goal is not necessarily to restore House entirely, but to create a homunculus-like approximation capable of teaching new players about the deeper lore of STRAFTAT. House still does exist, as fragments of him remain visible within 08 and other locations. However, his direct communication with the community has remained mostly absent for nearly an entire year. He reportedly spoke with a self-proclaimed submissive Gooner femboy, only briefly, before disappearing once more. Whether House returns for another appearance remains unknown. Casser questions sometimes whether bringing him back is safe, while Wayne reassures him that it is, so long as Wayne still exists inside of him. Despite this, Casser has yet to take significant action. Similarly to House, he reportedly spoke with a self-proclaimed submissive Gooner femboy, only briefly before disappearing once more. Because of this internal conflict, Casser often refers to himself as Yin Yang, a name derived from his experience of carrying both House and Wayne within his soul, representing the balance between two opposing forces that now coexist together. Casser is the only individual on Earth who has two separate data glands inside of his brain. The long-term effects of this procedure have yet to have been realized. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Casser, the narrator of the story and the only individual on Earth who has real lore knowledge, because I alone was directly influenced by it in real life. I alone carry this knowledge. And if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed my story, if you relate to my story, give a little like, give a little fucking, say something in the comments. Don't actually like the video, say something in the comments. This is the end of the video, and like always, we'll be seeing you